Now, talking about tall tales, there is one man that I think of, and that is my grandfather right here. And my grandfather was a true cowboy. He lived out in the deserts of Utah in a small town called Mammoth. Only 8 people lived there, and you could only build off of buildings that already existed. Now, it being a 100-year-old ghost town that used to be a mining town, there was only small stone pillars originally. But my grandpa would go down to different construction sites and would get pieces, and he pieced himself together a shack, not a house. It had all the features of a house. It had a kitchen, it had a bathroom, it had a room, but all the floors were uneven, all the walls were slightly askew, and mix matching walls, mix matching carpet, but it was home. And at this shack, my grandpa would gather us all together, all of us grandchildren, and he would tell us stories. He would teach us about the ghosts that he had seen while he was a guard. He would tell us about his time in the sky as a pilot. He would tell us about his journeys from where he grew up all the way in upstate New York in the countryside, and reading about the cowboys and about his journey out west to be a true cowboy. And he tells the stories, but none of the stories held up to his story of the time he helped an animal sales broker one summer when he was 12. Now, this story was so well known amongst us grandkids. And when we turned 8, it was a tradition that when you turned 8, that grandpa would sit you down right next to him where he could act out this story and have his arm around you as he would tell the story of when he was 12. Now, my grandpa, when he was 12, he lived in a small town. The small town had a train that went through it. Now, that train would it was not a place that the train had up and coming things, but it was a refueling station for the train. The train would come and they had a big train yard, and it would sit and refuel and get taken care of. Now, every summer on that train, there was an animal broker. Now, this animal broker would have exotic animals. Sometimes he'd have giraffes, sometimes elephants, zebras, and all manners of birds. And every summer, he would choose a young man, a young boy from this town to watch over the animal so he could take a rest. Now, my grandpa was finally at the age that he could be chosen. So immediately when he heard that that animal broker was coming in, he got on his bike and he head on down as fast as he could. He was there before anybody else. And immediately, as soon as that animal broker put his foot on the platform, he said, "Boy, do you want a job?" And my grandpa was ready. He was so excited. And the animal broker had making had made a deal with an owner of some property that's falling apart that he would store the animals there. And he had my grandpa go and meet him at one of these facilities. And this facility in particular used to store cheese. And it was so that there was a small building on top, and then it dug deep, deep, deep into the earth. And all the way on the sides of this silo-like structure that went into the earth were little pockets where the cheese would be. And they made steps that went all the way down. So my grandpa made his way all the way down to the very bottom, where there he saw in a cage, in the dark, barely sunlight coming through, a silverback gorilla. He had seen them in books before, and he was excited and scared. And the animal broker brought him over and said, "Okay, this is all you need to do. When you come over here, you're just gonna feed her about 2 times a day. You're gonna grab one of these watermelons and slice it up like this, throw it into the cage, and that's all you gotta do. And the animal threw it into the cave, and the gorilla ate it all up so quickly and chucked out the rind. And my grandpa was afraid, but very excited at the same time, agreed that this is what he would do, made his way back up the silo for the next day to come back all the way down, all by himself, where there was that cart that was full of melons. And in the corner, there was a gorilla breathing heavily and watching his every move. So my grandpa took a deep breath, grabbed that melon, brought it up onto the board, sliced it just the way he had watched the broker do, and threw it into the cage. And that gorilla grabbed that melon and didn't finish it. Looked up and started yelling and screaming and shaking onto the cage. My grandfather ran up as fast as he could onto those shelves, slipping slightly, almost falling, but just running. Halfway up the silo, he heard that cage fall apart and pounding sound of gorillas swinging on the shelves after him. And he made his way up, and as he was almost at the very top, he went up to the door. The door slid it short, and as he had it almost shut, the gorilla hand shot out through, grabbed him, and brought him close with that hot gorilla breath on his neck. Liz leaned in and said to him, "You forgot the salt." Now, my grandfather had a hold of me telling me this story, and we'd all laugh at this story. And there was a gleamer in his eyes, though, of remembrance. And we all knew that he had been there as well. And my grandpa told many more stories like that. And being the true cowboy that he was, when it was his time to go, when his heart told him it was time to go out to the sunset, he put on his boots, put on his hat, and drove himself off into the sunset. Now, my second story is a lot more lighthearted, but it reminds me of those stories that my grandpa would tell me as well. Because he had a lot of animal stories as well. Down at a petting zoo, far away from here, there lived a chicken. Now, Chicky Chicken wasn't quite a chick, and he wasn't quite a chicken. He was right in between. And Chicky Chicken knew from a very young age that he always wanted to be a rooster. That was until one day when a kids came to visit at the petting zoo, he would strut his stuff, showing off. But one day there was a kid who had a shirt that on his shirt was the most terrifying creature he had ever seen. And the kid explained to his friend that it was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And he pointed at Chicky Chicken and said, "You see that chicken? Did you know that chickens are related to the Tyrannosaurus Rex?" And Chicky Chicken was so excited. He was related to one of the most terrifying creatures out there. He was going to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He was going to be a T-Rex. And he decided to go out and tell all his friends the exciting news. So he went out to his friend Cow. And he went up to Cow and he said to Cow, "You see how big I can get? See how fluffy I am? I am going to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I am terrifying." Now, if you all should know this, a cow is much larger than a chicken. And so Cow's hearing this kind of laughed to herself. Oh, you're not terrifying, and that's okay. You're adorable. Well, that's not what Chicky Chicken wanted to hear at all. Not at all. And so Chicky Chicken went to go tell some more friends that he was, in fact, terrifying. He went over to the goats. And he went to the goats and got all proud and said, as you should know, I'm related to the T-Rex and I'm going to be a T-Rex now and I am terrifying. Hear my roar. Goats, yelling a lot louder, laughed. Oh, man. Oh, you're not terrifying, and that's okay. You're adorable. That's not at all what Chicky Chicken wanted to hear. So Chicky Chicken went to his friend the turtle and sat on top of Turtle, feeling a little bit more sad, and kind of sat on top where he could show Turtle to the side. You know, Turtle's eyes are on the side of its head. So he put his feet on the side and said, Turtle, I'm going to be a T-Rex and I am terrifying. Look at my claws. And showed them off to Turtle on either side of his eyes. Now Turtle slowly looking up and said, those aren't terrifying. In fact, they're pretty adorable. Chicky Chicken felt very, very defeated. He went off to the side of a barn to cry. But he cried. He got on top of an empty food barrel and cried some more. As he was crying, he started to hear the, a certain noise. All the other animals, the shivering and quaking. He felt cow moo with a shake, and a tremor, and the goats a bang, and a trembling and a quake. And he heard turtle rattling in that shell, and everyone was shaking. And what were they afraid of? But out by the gate, over just a little bit further from where Chicky Chicken was crying, was Wolf digging under the fence and starting to come out. Chicky Chicken looked around, not knowing what to do, Uh, and then he remembered. I am related to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I am terrifying. And he stomped those claws onto that barrel, and it echoed. And off the side of the barn, when he crowed, it sounded like a roar. And by the time Wolf stuck his head out on the other side, the sun was shining just right, casting a shadow on the side. And Wolf seeing the shadow, I didn't know they had T-Rexes here. And he skedaddled right back underneath that fence, told all of his friends about the T-Rex at the petting zoo. And from that day on, all of Chicky Chicken's friends knew that as though he was adorable, he was also very terrifying. The end.